All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to the Heavenly Father and His only begotten Son, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Ha, Wadash. All right, the honors be unto the apostles and elders that great millstone who well and have taught us this 100% truth. Much peace and blessings be unto you, hopeful, elect out the pushing out this word of thought, truth, and sincerity. To all you out, I do say Shalom. All right. And just coming in with another camp lesson, right? Coming week in, week out, the prophesied downfall of Babylon the Great, priest repentance for the kingdom and to the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. We're not the black Israelites, right? Because seeing the skin tone, you know, I am not the color. And even then, refer to a dark-skinned man as a black man, that's incorrect because I'm not sure you can look at it, but that is the color black, right? Whereas, skin tone is dark brown, right? But yeah, what's it called? Hard against Isaiah the 28th, it's like the Proverbs the 28th chapter. Right, which even then, we know that there's a confusion of faces, right? There ain't no 13th tribe, but it's more so people who descend from one of the 12 look like the heathen, right? I don't have a poster of the table of nations to, help you distinguish which people belong to which nation. But if you look like a so-called Chinese, that's a Moabite. And, even then, what's it called, scattering abroad. You know what the Greek word diasporas is, which is the scattering abroad. You have people from the 12 tribes scattered into that. They look like real, right? Southern Italians, those things, right? Slovakia, from second the Lipos did make the mention that those are real, right? So on and so forth. But this is the book of Proverbs, the 28th chapter, and verse 4 of the point. Right? They that forsake the law praise the wicked, but such as keep the law content with them. Right? Now, what does it mean to forsake? It means to go away from, right? To leave, depart. And what are the laws? What's it called? The commands written unto you in these two books. You have the faith, you have the King James Holy Bible, which that's the standard. We do go into other translations for better discernment, because sometimes certain verses in different translations break it down easier with modern terminology, because this is from like the 1600s, it has different words like thou sayest, right? What's it called? Thine. It's not old English, but it's an old variant of the modern English, if you will. And then you have the Apocrypha, which is taken out by Martin Luther, right? What's it called? I'm saying even need in mind, but he made the mention how though these are profitable to read, they're not as important as this. That is incorrect. All right, that is incorrect because we know this is one together. Right, they both complement each other. There is wisdom, right? Wisdom of Solomon and the Book of Sirach, right? The wisdom of Sirach, right? And so forth. But I digress. Proverbs 28 and 4, they that forsake the law praise the wicked. Yeah, so if the proportion is the only righteous way, therefore any other way is incorrect. Right? Hey, like in Psalm 19 and 19, through thy precepts I get understanding, therefore I hate every false way. You get true understanding from reading this. Precept upon precept and upon line here a little and there a little because they all one accord. They all fit together like a puzzle, basically. Right? And it's basically what Esau in this academia calls critical thinking, right? Arguing with the text. Not as in you're wrong and I'm right, well, because you're supposed to read from this. How are you going to argue with an inanimate object that contains knowledge? That's not how you argue. Rather, there are definitions, multiple definitions pursuant to each, term. Henceforth, that word argument could also refer to as in critical thinking, which is the analyzing and understanding of a composition of a written work. This composition, the contents that are written within, right? So that's an example of critical thinking. To digress back, when you forsake the law, any of these other ways, these customs of what's called the heathen, those come to naught. Those don't benefit. As a matter of fact, those will destroy it because it was August 24th that made the mention how I could pull it out. There is a way we've seen it right. But go sharper with me. There is a way. All right. It was the 14th chapter. And I believe it's verse 12. Proverbs the 14th chapter, verse 12. There is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. Henceforth, if you do not comply with this book, you shall be destroyed. Right? That's what the scriptures say. That's what prophecy states. Henceforth, what's it called? The depart from this book is to depart from the law. This is where you find the law. An example being the book of Exodus, 20th chapter. Right? And power spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy power, Yahweh, the true name, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. That's a command right there. The law is to not have anybody else but the Lord, Yahweh. Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah. Right? So, not praying on what's it called, Yesu. Right? The word Jesus really goes back to the Greek word Yesu. And what's it called? It's broken down at that term. The Greek term Yesu really means Jesus. A Greek mythological god. Which that Greek mythology, Roman mythology, all that crap. It's vain, it's wicked. What's it called? The five sons. You got Jacob. That's still what's it called? Worship. Their mythology. It's like Gnostic mythology with the five sons and whatnot. What's it called? We see question. You know. Those are false gods. And even when you listen to all these what's it called, creation stories that are not of the scriptures, they sound they sound bogus, right? Talking about what's it called, human sacrifices needed. They ain't needed. You know. But what's it called? There was a righteous sacrifice, and that was the slaughtering of the animals, but that's been done away with Yahweh Shai's great death. No more, right? No more of that, right? You want a life altar? The camp is a life altar. It's been broken down by the great men of the Lord, right? Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water in the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serpent. By the Lord thy power and the jealous power. And see, the thing about what's called that term jealousy is that it's not a so-called insecurity. What's it called? This Western society does is that they trying to weaponize the definitions of various words. Henceforth, that term, and so what's it called? That term, jealousy, is weaponized against us. Now it's seen as insecurity, but it's not. And if you say it's insecurity, you're going against the Bible, the scriptures, because the Heavenly Father Yahweh is a jealous power. He is jealous. Jealousy means what's it called? Trying to protect your possessions, right? It's not a form of insecurity. If you think it's insecurity and you call out the Lord, may the Lord destroy you. Point blank, period. Because we know the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Ba'ashman Oshai, the true name, right? The true names. Yahweh means He exists, right? Not these false gods, not Dagon, right? Not of these gods. It's Yahweh in the Hebrew. All right, Ba'asham in the name of Yahweh Shai, which is the name of the Son. Right? Hebrew for He delivers. Right? Because we know the thing about the Paleo Hebrew is that they're made of compound words. Yah means he, Hawa means exists. Hawashai means he delivers, he saves. And pursuant to the book of Matthew, the first chapter, verse 21, it made the mention how the Lord shall save us, shall save his people, which are the nation of Israel, right? So that's the thing about the Hebrew. They all have meanings. And those meanings, fit the law that those men have. All right. What's it called? That name Abel. I forget what it was in Hebrew, but the definition meant transient, if I'm mistaken, as in temporary, because you know as we read, he lived a short life, right? And what's it called? Edom in Hebrew, Adawam, means red. He came out red. Like melanin. You know, it's called. I digress though. For the Lord's thy power and my jealous power, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. And obviously, we know that ties into reincarnation, right? You live a life, hating the Lord. You come back hating the Lord, man. It's all based on our lives. A time after Ecclesiastes, the first chapter, verse 9, the thing that has been before me is that which shall be. And there is no thing under the sun, right? It's the paraphrase right there, you know? So on and so forth, you have the laws like thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, not steal, not bear false witness. Henceforth, the law is found within here, as we know. Find that Proverbs the 28th chapter. Wow. Maybe it's verse 4. God. Like it was chapter 28, verse 4. They that forsake the law praise the wicked. So again, if you go against the law, you automatically do wicked. There is no other righteous way aside from the scriptures, right? But I just keep the law, contend with them. Yeah, contend against the wicked. There's a separation, a border between the two. Can two walk together lest they be agreed? And the answer is no, right? And there is another precept touching on that, going into how darkness had no part with the light. Now, therefore, righteousness had no part with wickedness. There are two opposites. The only relation that's with the opposites of each other, They're not synonyms or antonyms. Henceforth, it makes the mention, let us just keep the law, contend with them, right? Evil men understand not judgment, but they that seek the law understand all things, right? Hey, what's that saying in the world? What's it called? Only the Lord, only God could judge me, right? What's it called? That's a false doctrine from the state, right? The only problem with that is that you could be the same. You could be a hypocrite when it comes to that judgment. Right? Hey, but what's the nation of Israel? A people that shall judge. Do we not have a book named the Book of Judges, where the Danites, which were mingled into the 12 tribes, right? Hence, where there's no 13th, but they're not the Danites. What's it called? So like, not that term, not the name Dan mean the judge. Which even then, if I'm mistaken, in the Book of Judges, you had other tribes, if I'm mistaken, right? Like in Zechariah, if I'm mistaken, right? Now Samson, on the other hand, he was a judge and he was a Danite. You know, what's it called? So our people were meant to be what's it called? A royal priesthood, right? Kings, judges, lords, true gods. You can't be a true God without judging, right? And that's why we're in this place in the first place, to experience the left-hand side, but very soon we'll be out. And what's it called? The Apostle Peter made the mention, new heaven and new earth, which obviously that word new goes after the Greek word kainos, meaning refreshed. Sharp with me. It's 2 Peter 3 and 12. looking for and hastening unto the coming day of power, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat, going to the ICBMs. Nevertheless, we according to this promise, looking and new promise because, or not new promise, but the promise because the things that time after Isaiah the 49th chapter, it makes mention declaring the end from the beginning. The Lord has through his men has prophesied these things from the very beginning, thousands of years ago, right? What's it called? Henceforth, that promise still sticks, right? The Lord doesn't change his mind. He's talking about what's it called perfected, a righteous world, right? The only way to be righteous is through the establishment of the Israelites, the people of the Lord, the sons of God, right? The princes of the power, not no man, not the heathen, with these arbitrary laws. You know, you had from the not to be confused with the Neo-Babylonian Empire. You had the Old Babylonian Empire, which happened before that, and within the Old Babylonian Empire, you had Hammurabi, and he's known for his laws. But those laws, are contrary to that of the scriptures. You know, and one of Hammurabi's laws is, to kill the thief and chop off the hands of a child that hit that strikes their parents, or the physically hit as a strike. But the scriptures say opposite. To kill the child that smites their strikes their parents. I'm saying it smite means to kill, so I would just say strike because even then you got rebellious children that get down. Uh, Hey, those children either way are supposed to get what's it called, capital punishment, whereas the thief gets spared, right? So you see how these arbitrary laws, they benefit nothing. They're not scriptural. They're not what's it called, from the heavens. And because the Lord ain't dealing with those people. Sirach, the first chapter, verse 1 from second and verse 2, depending on if you're in the application or on the actual book itself, I'll pull it out. It makes the mention how only the Lord can give you wisdom, right? Yeah, all wisdom cometh from the Lord and is with them forever, right? So, and we know in time back various other precepts, such as Psalms 147, if I'm mistaken, it makes the mention the Lord only gave it to his men, right, and his people, right? More specifically, as elect, and more specifically as men, right? That's my train of thought. Um, yeah, so what's it called? Only the laws, the truth of the righteous laws come from the scriptures. So tying back to verse 5, evil men understand not judgment, but they that seek will understand all things. You have to seek, right, to look for the old ways as it is written. I'm mistaken now in Jeremiah. Hey, what old ways? Well, just like how Jake like to follow the ways of the heathen. You got Jake that are Buddhists and whatnot. That's an old way because it goes back from second like 1 or 2,000 years ago as an estimate. I could be wrong on that, for sure. But they don't see these old ways of what's called Israelites, right? But you're supposed to. This is our heritage. So, but they that seek the Lord understand all things. Now, what's it called? We understand a lot more than the rest of the world, right? That starts off with the elder apostle Tahar and the great men on down, right? And it's no wonder why people in the world always inquire questions about what's it called, so-called UFOs and whatnot. But we know what's it called pursuant to the scriptures. It sounds lunacy, right? But we know it'll be the chariots, right? People talk about what's it called. That's not real. What did Mark Twain say? Reality is stranger than fiction. And I think that's even written in here, something along those lines, right? That same conclusion. It was in what's my second thought? Second this was right in second. I believe it was Wisdom of Solomon. Had a little brain fart, but All right. Hey, Wisdom of Solomon, hey, the 5th chapter. And I'm going to start at verse 1. Oh, sure. Thank you. Thank you. Look at that. And it's a precept too. It says, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Exactly. And that's what we're going into. What's it called? Time after Proverbs 28th chapter. Hey, we're supposed to seek, the Lord and contend with the wicked. Hey, keeping the law. So, hey, call Halalim, La Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, the water. Thanks. Right? That was the spirit. Joshua 24:15. Which, for a bit of patience, a bit of schooling, Joshua in the Hebrew is Yahweh Shai, not to be confused with the Lord Yahweh Shai. You know, it's called, so there is that. And originally his name was Hosea, right? Which in the Hebrew is Hawashai, before God changed to Joshua. So, hey, what after that, right? I see a problem. And I'm still waking up on this as well. But anyways, hey, verse 1, then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness before the face of such as are afflicted and made no account of his labors. And what's it called? That's tying into going out the camp. Standing in great boldness. Hey, what's it called? Declaring the names. Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai, which, it's Hebrew pronunciation, and it's written right here. Now, once again, that Yah is not supposed to be that way. That was my mistake. The Yah is the only Hebrew character that's supposed to be smaller compared to the rest. But you see, Yah is his own word meaning he. Hawa is a word meaning exists. Thenceforth, the compound name is he exists. And same thing tying over here with the son's name. And time after, which is Yahweh Shai, right? Yah. And then Yahweh Shai means to save, right? What's it called? And what's it called? We received the Hebrew through faith, right? Which, what's it called? Esau may say, hey, that's not the right pronunciation. Well, no, it is, right? What's it called? It's Abba, Gada, Ha, so on. But I digress. Before the face of such as afflicted, and what does he mean by afflicted? Hey, because we're still in captivity to this day. It may not look like it, but what's it called? You understand, especially under this economy where everything is going down, right? We're like voluntary service, voluntary state. We got debts, okay, right? You may be living paycheck to paycheck, right? Dependent on your parents. Now at this point, it's like, with the gas prices being so high, you get your paycheck just to drive to work. No more to pay the bills or whatnot. Now it's like all that money goes to gas. What's it called? Now that's obviously hyperbole, an exaggeration, but you get the point. That's a form of what's it called, the economy being bad. But I digress. What's it called? Such as afflicted. I mean, you could also pertain it to what happened several hundred years ago, right? That was hardcore bondage. For what Esau would call to tell slavery. But once again, some Edomites, they don't like using that term to tell slavery because slavery is slavery. Well, there's a distinction again, right? Hardcore bondage, and then this one, we're still slaves because what's it called? We're under the sovereignty of another nation, right? We don't have sovereignty, and we gotta work on the Sabbath, right? What's it called? There are certain things that we cannot eat while in captivity. So even though you're not getting physically beat down, you are by what's it called, the constraints of this lifetime, and as well as what's it called, what happened in the past lives here in the geography. So I mean, no account of his labor. Yeah, you guys account this thing to be false. What did the apostle Paul make the mention? What's it called? We're nothing but spectacles. Going to a fool's for Yahweh Shai's sake, right? People look at us and we're like a joke to them. How can you say there are those good spirits? What's it called? I don't want to say good spirits, but you got, a certain Jake. Hey, what's it called? They may see that these are good deeds, but for the majority, they really hate what we're about. Henceforth, made no account of his labors. When they see it, they shall be troubled with terrible fear and shall be amazed at the strangeness of his salvation. Time back to the mention, reality is stranger than fiction. Now, obviously, that's a paraphrase from what Mark Twain said, but you get the gist of it, right? Henceforth, why people have questions and they have no discernment unless they seek the man of the Lord, true counsel, which counsel means advice, right? Now, there's two different words for counsel. You got counsel with the IL, counsel with the SEL. The SEL means advice, wisdom, in other words. Not the scriptures state that the what's it called, man, the Lord, or it's like what's it called, the righteous are a fountain of wisdom, to really paraphrase. Yeah, a fountain of wisdom. You look at a fountain, metaphorically speaking, it's spewing out water, right? Now you can liken that to what's it called, the men speaking wisdom. You know, if I'm mistaken, that also ties into what's it called, living water is really perfect. But and they're panting and groaning for anguish of spirit shall say within themselves, this was he whom we had sometimes in derision and a proverb of reproach. We fools accounted his life madness and the end to be without honor. And you guys call us fools, but really it's the other way around. And you guys are the fools, right? It's a foolish thing to not cleave, not take heed to counsel, right? And that reminds me of the book of Proverbs, the first chapter. You know, hey, therefore they groaning, repenting and groaning. When you look at these movies, you got the groaning people. That's out of a sorrow. They're grieved. They're bereaved through their stupid ways. But to them we're fools, and it's gonna stay that way until what's it called, a judgment comes upon them, right? So let's bring it up. So Proverbs the first chapter, verse 21. Uh, All right, verse 20. Wisdom crieth without, she uttereth her voice in the streets. And how does she do that? She doesn't physically manifest herself as a being, speaking. No. More so wisdom, what's it called, is the accumulation of knowledge and understanding which are comprised within the consciousness of right? The mind, the brain of a man toward a person of the world, right? And because again, the word, the power of knowledge, even when that grants knowledge to whoever he pleases. And he uses those individuals as vessels to spew out excellence, right? Even on the internet, you know. Now, yeah, back in the ancient realm, it was, we what's it called, U.S. camp. They did, as a normal way of teaching, but now we could do it through the internet. That's why another example could be that's why you don't travel, what's it called, by boat or by plane. Now some individuals may do that, right? Some Akim, what's it called, go to meet other Akim across the world. But what's it called, you don't do that to teach anymore. You do it through the internet, right? The satellites, right? I digress. She cried from the chief place of concourse. You can liken this to a chief place of concourse because it refers to a very, what's it called, condensed, no, not condensed, a dense area, a dense region, right? A commercial area, for example. Back in the ancient realm, or in ancient was back in ancient realm, it was your flea markets, right? Which we still have flea markets to this day. Or by another words, the swap meet, right? Those are filled and littered with people. Hey, but this is a cheap place of concourse, right? This is what we call the plaza area, right? Downtown, right? So, hey, again, keep right from the cheap place of concourse. This is a physical example of it. In the openings of the gates in the city, she uttereth her words, saying, how long ye simple ones. And we know that word simple means, what's it called? A lack of knowledge, simple-minded. When we're simple-minded, it's because you lack, knowledge, right? Because the only way to find true knowledge is through the scriptures. If you don't have it, then you're simple, you know? What's it called? And the scorners of light and the scorning and fools hate knowledge. They hate knowledge. And we also hate knowledge because they don't, what's it called? Rather, they like to do what they do, or they don't want to be told that they're wrong. That's an example as to why people would kill the prophets of old. Hell, you would even kill the philosophers, man. You know, you people would even kill the philosophers. I forget what philosopher it was. He was, he was writing an equation on the sand, and the guards took him and then slew him. What's it called? Another example I believe, what's it called? Soccer. Over there. Thank you. What's it called? Socrates. You know, Socrates was put on trial for quote unquote corrupting the youth, right? And what's it called? Which Socrates had some critiques, against the what's it called? Athenian politics. I'm mistaken. Uh, a So though Socrates had some critiques on Athenian politics, I'm thinking, hey, he still what's it called accepted his capital punishment and drank of that what's it called plant, and then died, right? So you had many your Greek philosophers and such. They also got killed, right? What's it called? First and foremost, the prophets of the man of the Lord. If anything, you could liken the man of the Lord as righteous philosophy, right? And because what does philosophy mean? It's a compound word as well. In the Greek, it's two words, two root words. Philo, which means love. Sophia meaning wisdom. Philosophia, philosophia, philosophy, the love of wisdom. And again, wisdom is the accumulation of knowledge and understanding. But also philosophy, what's it called? It's a way of living, right? A mentality. And you cleave onto that mentality, that way of living, revolving around that knowledge. Right? We do the same thing because again, hey, what did King David say in Psalms 19:19? That precept I get understanding, therefore I hate every false way. We get understanding through this book and this one. Therefore we hate every other book. Hey, though what's it called? We understand that there are certain mental books like who is Esau Edom? That's a good book. And it was made by an Edomite too, though he was like white nationalist or whatever. So that guy was wicked either way, but the Lord used him. And you also got from Babylon to Timbuktu, Slovakia. This is also a good book. And this one, Pete, this. Tony Hillerman. Tony Hillerman, the best of the West. An anthology. So an anthology, people hate anthologies, but if you like literature, you like reading. An anthology it's a good book because an anthology book is a book comprised of many short stories. An anthology of classic writing from the American West, and this goes into certain things that perspired in what's it called here in Babylon the Great, on the American frontier. Now peep this, chapter 1, and it starts out with New Mexico's mystery stone, known as a Decalogue stone, right? And that's Los Lunas, New Mexico. Decalogue means the Ten Commandments because this stone has been found, and it basically, states the Ten Commandments. So I'm gonna read it. It says a discovery of rune stones bearing inscriptions from early Scandinavian languages has long since cast doubt on the notion that Christopher Columbus was America's first tourist in Europe, and that's true because we know, what's it called? Columbus didn't discover America. Really it was, the Northern Kingdom that discovered America. But if you're going by what's it called, the European side, so-called European, really Edomites, though we know there's Jake there too, and he the nation scattered abroad. Because even what's it called, certain parts of Europe are a melting pot on its own, right? But what's it called? We're talking about what's it called? First so-called Europeans to arrive in America. It was the Norsemen, the Vikings, right? And you read that in your Greenland sagas. And I believe it was Eric. No, I don't think it was Eric. I think it was his son Leif Erikson, if I'm mistaken, or so. And he and his siblings conducted various voyages to what's what's Eastern Canada, right? And what's it called? They speak of Gad, right? But they call them the what's it called? Skraelings. Skraeling as in frail, right? What's it called? You have to realize, especially with the Gadite tribes in with Canada, the so-called Inuit and so on and so forth, they lack resources. What's it called? They lack wood. They get their wood from driftwood in the ocean, and then they use that very scarcely. right? If I'm not mistaken, they have their own maps. Whereas what's it called? They would carve said driftwood and then carve it into like the ridges of the coastline, and that was their map. So what's it called? When you don't have paper and what's it called to read to write, and you come up with these different ways. An example would be I believe it was tribe of tribe of Asher, if I'm mistaken, tribe of Asher or Naphtali, one of those Northern Kingdom tribes. They have something known as Ipu. It's an ancient what's it called communication system, where it was a series of what's it called knots, different colors and different knots, and different lengths, and certain people would be able to read said what's it called knots, and it was there to record information as soon as pass messages. As well as people. So and Jake had various methods of what's it called interpretation, if you will. I digress though. It reads on another inscribed stone discovered in 1850 in the Rio Puerto Valley, 18 miles west of Los Lunas, New Mexico, makes the Norsemen too seem like latecomers. Which, yes, it's true because we understand the first peoples, was in the 12 tribes of Israel. The first so-called Europeans, however, was the so-called Norsemen, right? Right. All right, and that ties back with to the scripture, right? Like in Ezra, the 13th chapter, verse 40. Those are the 10 tribes, and the 10 tribes pertain to Northern Kingdom, right? Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king. Hosea the king, right? Whom Salmanessar, the king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. And that was forsaken Assyria at the time. Well, they took this counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt. And they ain't talking about Europe. They ain't talking about Mongolia or wherever the hell. All that was conquered land. All that was a known world in its time. It's talking about the Western Hemisphere in this case. So never mankind woke, you know, uh, that they might keep their statutes which they never kept in their own lands, and they entered into Euphrates by the narrow passage of the river. For the Most High then showed signs for them and held still the flood till they were passed over. For through that century there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half. And we understand what's it called pursuant to what's it called old circumnavigation methods, and with the technology of the time, it would take about a year for them to to go from point A to point B in the Western Hemisphere. Now Esau teaches they came through Beringia, the a former landmass in the Bering Strait, which that's not true. All right, that is not true. But the only reason he says that is because he knows that what's it called Gadites apparently share like a Y chromosome or whatever with a so-called agent. Which if there's any relation, any truth to it, it would be that when you look into the geography, what's it called, the tribal allotments of land, yeah, did border, what's it called, Ammon. What's it called? And that's where you had Israelite men take Ammonite women a wife, right? What's it called? Various men. What's it called? A guy with had concubines. What's it called? Ruth was a Moabite, and what's it called? That was, like a great grandmother, if I'm not mistaken, to King David. Right? So, hey, Jake always dealt with, there's even a law pertaining to that, right? With the spoils of war. So, if there's any truth to that, is that Gad did deal with Ammon, right? So, anyways, we know that they what's it called? Northern Kingdom crossed through the so-called Atlantic Ocean. Anyways, and the same region is called Arsarat, which means another land. We know that to be what's it called? What's been named after Amerigo Vespucci, the Americas. Then dwelt they there unto the latter time, and now when they shall begin to come, the eye shall stay the springs of the stream again, that they may go through. Therefore saw that the multitude was peace. Right, the peace. Now tying back to this book, it makes mention how long ago an inscription was chipped in the basalt outcrop in strange characters. Dixie L. Perkins, quoted here from her The Meaning of the New Mexico Mystery Stone, believes the inscription was a word of a Greek sailor about 500 BC who wrote, I have come up to this point to stay. The other one, met with an untimely death a year ago, remained a hair of habit. Isaac Hernos, or Isaac Pineros, had reached mortal man and fleeing and then buried, much afraid I became hollow, gone from hunger. A significant communication is part of the New Mexico inscription rock or mystery stone. People were aware of the inscription when New Mexico became a territory in 1850, but no one could read it. However, 1 century later, which means 100 years later, Robert H. Pfeiffer of Harvard University made the first known translation of the strange writing. He was considered to be an authority of the Old Testament. He concluded that the inscription was a copy of the Ten Commandments, henceforth why it's known as a Decalogue stone, because Decalogue means Ten Commandments. He decided it was written in the Phoenician, the Moabite, and the Greek languages, which is incorrect because we know how it's called. The Phoenician script and the Paleo-Hebrew script were essentially the same, yet they evolved independently. Right? They evolved independently. They're essentially the same scripts. Really, it was a Paleo-Hebrew in this case. Right? And even what's it called, Moabite language, you got that Moabite stele or stele, however you pronounce it, and it shares the same characters that what's it called we teach, right? And it makes mention Greek languages, well, because the Greek language did evolve from the Phoenician script, right? And then Romans adopted from the Greek, and what's it called? We adopted from the Latin, So what's it called? English and Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian are all similar, and they sound similar to what's it called Latin, right? Or they come from the Latin script rather yet. What's it called? So it's no wonder why if you know Spanish, you'll be able to understand some Latin and some Portuguese, vice versa, right? Even some English. There are a lot of words that sound similar. Same thing with English, Spanish, and Greek, predominantly. Like you got the Spanish word iglesia, and the Greek is ecclesia, and it's a congregation of people. The Greek word klimax is the same as the English word climax. It means the inclination, or a ladder rather. Yet in Greek, it meant a ladder or an inclination. For us, it's like the plot line, of a movie. You got the rising action, then you got the climax, and then the what's it called, resolution, or whatever you call it, right? Orchestra being Greek, if I'm mistaken. That's how you pronounce it, but it's Greek, orchestra, and it means orchestra, right? As in the music. So there are many words, that really what's it called, have been adopted from such. Another word would be cathedral. Cathedral in Spanish is catedral, and catedral in Greek is cathedra. And what does cathedra mean? A seat. And where's the cathedral? The seat of the bishop, right? So there are many similarities. Anyways, to my knowledge, Professor Pfeiffer did not state at the time who he thought carved the message. However, his translation seemed to satisfy the curiosity of the people of that era. Indeed, it stood for many years as the final word. The stone is still referred to occasionally as a Ten Commandments, Rob, because again, it is a Ten Commandments. Further speculation involved the origin of the author of the inscription. Some viewers conjectured a member of one of the lost tribes of Israel spoken of in the Bible, which even the Bible is a Greek word, or it comes from the Greek rather yet. Bible or Biblia goes back to the Greek word biblion or biblios, meaning book. So the Bible and the Apocrypha being one together, they're just a book. And they're also known as the book of books. I made the mention last time. An example would be 1963 Cleopatra, where you had Gaius when that library of Alexandria was burning. Gaius, was grieved And it was quoting books. And even made a mention the Testament of the Hebrew God, the book of books. That's what this means. You know, the Old T, the NT, the Apocrypha are the book of books. Book, it's just a book, you know, of books. Book in Greek is biblion or biblios, depending on the nominative or diminutive form, and that's where you get the word Bible or Biblia from. So again, we adopt a lot from what's it called, Latin, Greek, also French, right? Like laissez-faire, right? Or laissez-faire, pronounce it right, laissez-faire or laissez-faire, right? Deja vu, right? Hey, lingua franca, the lingua franca, right? Which means common tongue. Which lingua franca of the earth today is the English, and that's through the British Empire, what's it called? Which again, that's still Esau, you know. And because again, Esau was promised and blessed with the fatness of the earth, right? He has rule as of right now, but we know he's at his endpoint. I digress. Further speculation of that. So in 1936, an anthropologist from the University of New Mexico, Dr. Frank C. Hibben, saw the rock. He expressed the view of the writing could have been carved by the Mormons when they migrated westward. And that's what Esau says. He makes the mention that the Mormons created this as to keep the lie going that we're not the 12 tribes. But we know during the colonial period, we had many scholars that believed that the so-called indigenous of the Americas were the 12 tribes. Word even got, it's like I believe it was Benjamin Franklin or Thomas Jefferson. I think it was Benjamin Franklin. He got word of it. Word came to Benjamin Franklin about this when it was called theory. So he even knew about it. But it's true. It's not a theory if it's confirmed through the scriptures. But I digress. 1954, Robert H. Lafayette wrote an interesting translation of an inscription, as did Robert Pfeiffer in 1949. Mr. Lafayette determined some of the letters in the inscription were Phoenician. And again, what's it called? Essentially the same with the Paleo-Hebrew, but it's really the Paleo-Hebrew script. In addition, he concluded that other letters were in Hebrew, Cyrillic, and Etruscan. Thus, Robert Lafayette made the first attempt at the translation, which would in any way challenge the establishment of Robert Pfeiffer. Lucky narrows that the Greek left the metropolitan Mediterranean area with his empire, his armies, and navies behind them, with the seething cities and towns with extended manufacturing, marketing, and trading industries, as in that led to the empty region of central New Mexico. Right, that's an important whatever. What I wanted to show you, however, was a drawing of the inscription. That is the Paleo Hebrew. That's an I character, the I or a lot, right? I, and you notice how that looks like an A? Well, it's no wonder why was it called why English looks so similar to it's because it's an evolution, right? The Phoenician script was adopted by the Greeks. The Greek script was adopted by the Romans. The Latin script was adopted to the contemporary world. Henceforth, we share the same letters as the what's it called Romans of old, right? That A has stood the length of time. That's a na ka ma, or it's like a ya, right? What's it called? I'm thinking that's Yahweh, the name of the Lord, Yahweh, Alahayim. What's it right? What's it called? Is that a word or a shard? I'm thinking a shard means witch, right? And so on and so forth. But continuing on, uh, digressing back. All right, so verse 40, verse 46, or yeah, verse 42. That they might keep their statutes which they never had kept in their own land. And so it's no wonder why they inscribed the Ten Commandments in that stone. You know, though we know generation upon generation what had happened was that the wicked line, flourished, and what's it called? They knew not the Lord. right? You read about that in Judges, what's it called? How after one of the judges died, a wicked generation came that knew not the Lord. That clearly was the case. What's it called when we write to what's it called Ars Reth, aka the Americas, again named after Amerigo Vespucci, an Italian navigator. Right? So where was I again? I forget what was the original precept I was on. I got out. I forget. I look back to my notes. Get the notes right there. So yeah, I'm gonna digress back to Proverbs 28. All right. They that forsake the Lord praise the wicked, but just keep the law content with them. And now I'm gonna pull out the book of Psalms, the 37th chapter. Right. Which nothing wrong with reading the Psalms. Because what's it called? Those are also prophetic, as we know. Even the book of Job, right? He prophesied in spirit, though we knew not. And why? Because we could apply it to right now. What Esau would call an illusion, the relation of a thing it's not related to, right? That's really Job prophesying the spirit of what would happen in the latter times, you know? All right, the point was, all right, well, is that a good piece of picture for that? I think I'll start off at verse 1, Psalms 37 and 1, a Psalm of David. Fret not thyself because of evildoers, neither be thou envious against the workers of iniquity, for they shall soon be cut down like the grass and wither as the grass herb. Trust in the Lord and do good, so shalt thou dwell in the land, and verily thou shalt be fed. Right, what's it called? And we're going to go back to our land pretty soon, pursuant to prophecy. And we just got to wait for the last, minor prophecy right here. Jacob's trouble climaxing, right, with they put one coming into place, right? MOTB, right? What's it called? World War III, with this drafting, what's it called? A lot more death, persecution, right? What's it called? That day of judgment, the day of the Lord, the day of the Lord. When you think about the ICBMs and Yahweh Shai and the chariots on the scene, that's the day of the Lord, right? And only then will the elect be delivered up out of this place and taken to their land. So as you can see, just no one do good without dwelling in the land, and barely that should be fed. We're not in the land right now because we went off, many ago. But we're coming back to it. We're coming back to the law, that is the commandments, and we're going to be taken back to our land. Because this ain't our land, or it rather used to be, not anymore, right? As a matter of fact, obviously states that should be burned, right? Point blank, period. But commit thy way unto the Lord, trust also in Him, and He shall bring it to pass. Bring it to pass. Bring it to pass. Right? Trust also in Him, and He shall bring it to pass. What to pass? Hey, that day of the Lord, man. You know, and it's gonna happen, right? Isaiah, what's it called, 55 and 11, made the mention how my word shall not return to me void, right? Esau could try and ban prophecy. Well, at the end of the day, he can. He could just try coming up with these various methods to bend it. He can, right? What's it called? An example would be, him coming up with all this high advanced technology. What's it called? The Doom directed energy lasers, directed energy weapons. He has what's it called? A feeling that he'll be able to take out a chariot with that. As a matter of fact, he's been flaunting, that false status, making the mention that he's been, this quote unquote destroying chariots. That's not the case. And even on that day of the Lord, he could try and penetrate a chariot if you can. All right. what's it called? A chariot is spiritual material, right? Actually, if anything, that's actually an angel. You know, a chariot, what's it called? Is an angel, as the old Apostle Kabbalah broke down, right? So you can't attack a spiritual being, right? You know, whereas with the carnal, it could, right? With the carnal, it deteriorates, something known as wear and tear, right? This wall wears and tears. You know, it gets weathered. You know, constant rain may erode it. You know, a blast may blow it up. And that's actually what happened with, Maui, right? You know, the do weapons that, you know, what Esau was able to accomplish in that island, he can't accomplish against the chariot. That's the thing, you know? And that reminds me of going back 2 seconds into the 13th chapter, it goes into that, right? Second Ezra 13 and verse 5. And after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men. Multitude means, you know, various groups of men out together, right? And that's time about what's it called, these various militaries, right? What's it called? You know, a whole fleets, plural rather yet, right? Um, what was that? Yeah, out of the number from the four winds of the heaven to subdue the men that came out of the sea. And you know, the four winds, four directions, right? It's talking about the four directions: north, south, west, east. Or rather, in this setting, that would be the north, that would be the south, that's the east, and that's the west, right? So from all the four directions of the earth, you know, from whatever country, landmass, right, kingdom, empire, whatever, in whatever country you're from, right? What's it called? That's where they come from. And even what's it called? Esau's military, he has various what's it called? Stations and bases throughout the four corners of the earth, right? Also, the Yahweh Shai ship will be so big, you could see it, man, from what's it called? Point A all the way to point B. You know, all of America will be able to see the chariot, man, right? So from different parts of the world, they're gonna come forth from the top. So, dude, the man that came out of the sea, Bobby old and low, he had graved himself a great mountain and flew upon it, but I would have seen the region or place where out the hill was graven, I could not, because again, it's gonna be so big. And you're not gonna see, you know, this rim. You're not gonna see the rims. All you're gonna see is just black covering the sky. You know? Hey, the thing you see in Independence Day with the Star or the City Destroyer, Now you're in the midst of it. You can't see the horizon. You know, it just covers the sky. And that's what we're gonna see, but on a bigger scale. Hey, because this is a Yahweh Shai ship, not a city destroyer, right? And as the others and apostles, you know, on down have taught, chariots differ in size. There could be a chariot the size of a bus, a chariot the size of a building, a chariot the size of half a planet, a moon, right? Look at Star Wars, you know, with the Imperial fleet. You know, the Star Destroyers, those things are humongous compared to the miniature ones, right? Look at the Death Star, for example. The Death Star is the quote-unquote space station, right? You could liken it to the space station, right? Depending on the size, there are various openings, right? So, and you seen, what's it called, A New Hope, when the Millennium Falcon, you know, parks into the Death Star, that thing is miniature compared to that whole, you know, station, right? So again, chariots differ in size. I digress. And after this I behold, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, and yet durst fight. And durst is an archaic term for the word dare to fight. So like truth or dare, people be daring each other to do stupid things. Yeah, what's one stupid thing Esau dares himself to do? Go against the Lord. You know, they got the little baby pellets, right? Their bullets, their little pellets. I compare it to a laser, a cherry, or they also, you know, Esau also has lasers, but now that compared to a laser from the chariot, man, you know, who will win? obviously the chariot. So what's it called? Esau's gonna lose pretty badly. What's it called? Digressing back. Wait, wasn't that on Proverbs the first chapter? Yeah, it was, huh? So I was wondering what I lost my train of thought. Slovakia. Anyways, hey, we'll finish it up and wrap back Proverbs 1. But yeah, actually, why not do that right now? If I digress back to Proverbs the first chapter, uh, verse 23, right? Yeah. Turn you out my reproof. Behold, I will pour out my spirit unto you. I'll make known my words unto you. Because I have called and you refused. I have stretched out my hand and no man regarded. But you have said that not on my counsel, and that word not is an archaic term for the word to make nothing, to make vain. Right? You guys make this counsel for naught. You know, as in you guys don't do anything with it. And even if you do listen and hearken, well, what the scriptures talk about, the hearers and the doers. You're not doing it. You know, you're as a man beholding yourself in a looking glass, you know, a mirror. And then you go straight away not doing what you were told to do. So you have said not on my counsel with none of my reproof. Right? So I'm gonna put the verse on. Well, there's that. There is that. All right, I will also, and this is the Lord speaking, I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear comes. And what does that calamity mean? A disaster, right? A troublesome time. You know, you think the Lord's all about, you know, what's it called? Peace and love. He is to his elect, right? Show his mercy, and to me, shows mercy to. Not everybody. He could be, you know, what's it called? Evil, right? Evil. Isaiah 45 to 17th chapter. People don't like to hear that. They're all talking about, well, what? That's all about what? But that's not what the scriptures say. Hey, because again, it's a balance at the end of the day. You know, talking about the Proverbs 11, a false balance is an abomination to the Lord, right? So, I was going to get out. Isaiah the 45th chapter. It was verse 7, 45 and 7. I form the light and create darkness. I make, yeah, so it's all through the math, it's all through the mind of the Lord. You know, these left hand ways and right hand ways are of the Lord. And we know light is representative of knowledge, as much as darkness represents, you know, a lack of it, a lack of knowledge, right? It was called, that means the left hand, right hand angels flees from the Lord. And people talk about what's it called? Satan is its own guy. No, Satan serves the Lord. And that ties back to Job, you know, first and second chapter, right? You know, what's it called? Actually, I'll put it out. I don't want to paraphrase it. And it does read in Job, uh, the first chapter, verse 6. Now there was a day when the sons of Yahweh came to present themselves before the Lord. Now those be the angels, right? Hey, just as much as the Israelites be the sons of God, right? Even the angels, they're perfected. And as some of the Yakin broke down, you could also liken the perfected angels as Israelites, you know? Time after that, priests are going to how an example would be John. You know, he was speaking to an angel and he was having the revelations, and hey, he bowed down to the angel. The angel was like, "Hey, don't bow down because I'm your brother." You know, so you could also liken the angels perfected beings as the Israelites, right? As one of the some of the Akim broke down. There was a day when the sons of God Yahweh and to present themselves before the Lord Yahweh, and Satan came also among them, right? And you got what's it called? These earlier doctrines talking about how you know he's not a servant of the Lord, and somehow he broke into heaven and blah blah. Tempted the Lord saying, "Do this." Blah, blah. No, what's it called? Rather, yeah, it's Satan being a perfected being too, serve the Lord because he's righteous. Now, it what's it called? Satan and what's it called? The so-called fallen angels. We read about in the false books called Enoch. We've been taught those are not the right books. So what the world talks about is that supposedly Satan and these so-called fallen angels, though perfected beings, they do their own thing against the Lord. But how can that be so? If that's the case, how can the Apostle Paul then, what's it called, prophesy the spiritual bodies, putting on the incorruptible, right? Why then does he prophesy about these spiritual bodies be perfected if what's it called, they're corrupting itself? Henceforth, somebody's lying here. What's it called? That's why you're not supposed to read the book of First and Second Enoch, right? That's a false doctrine going to how Satan and the left-hand angels are wicked. No, they're perfected beings. All of them serve the Lord. All of them have their purpose. Left-hand angels, right-hand angels, right? So once again, time after Isaiah the 45th chapter, it makes the mention. What's it called? Verse 7. I formed the light and create darkness. So the Lord, creates, what's it called? That right-hand knowledge and that left-hand knowledge. I make peace and create evil. Right? He does good and he does the wickedness. He created both sides of the spectrum. Right? And the Lord didn't just randomly appear and that spectrum was already the Lord, what's it called, has always been, and he created the spectrum. You have to realize that before, what's it called, the concept of time, before the creation, he was all by himself. You could look at it as an infinite state of self-being because he's always been by himself. And he thought about everything, every single thing down to its last minute detail. He created atoms, right? He created the atomical structures, right? Like what's it called? Little what's it called? Neurons, things of that sort. Created all matter, right? When you inspect the wall and you look closely, you see the little patterns. The Lord created every single pattern, right? He what's it called? He created everything. He created the biology, right? He created what's it called? The concept of culture. He thought about communication system, and that's what's it called, vocal cords, right? And obviously we know the animals don't speak like humans do, but they have their other methods of communication which the Lord established, right? Like with the antennas, where they send frequencies with each other, right? Birds chirping. The Lord designed all of this. Even the human body, it's peculiar in its own way. You can't tell me evolution managed to what's it called, create the, create articulated fingers, the sinews, laid out the way they are. No, this is all proportioned by the Lord, right? What's it called? You can't. There's no way that what's it called? Esau's main science talking about evolution was able to create this, right? From a swimming reptilian to a freaking rodent to a monkey to a human. That's not what's it called, scriptural. As a matter of fact, time back to the book First Corinthians, the 15th chapter, next mention how there is a different, there's a different, flesh of animals, different flesh of mankind, right? So that Russian, you know, experiment to experiment between the procreation between human and chimpanzee came to nothing. It came to naught, right? Because you cannot create a human Z, right? Because they're two different species. They cannot, what's it called, procreate. And even that's an abominable thing. Why would you procreate with an animal? That is wickedness. So I from the light, I create darkness, I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things, right? And it's capitalized, Lord, right? Emphasize his time out the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, Hashem Yahweh Shai. He created both sides of the spectrum. And so, once again, Proverbs 11, verse 1, a false abomination is, it's like a false balance is abomination to the Lord. And I believe this Proverbs 16 and 11 make a mention how a just weight is the words of life. The Lord has a balance. Else, why would he condemn it in scripture if he didn't have a balance? You know? He does have a balance. Anyways, I digress back to Proverbs 1. So I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your fear cometh. When your fear cometh as desolation, and your destruction cometh as a whirlwind. When distress and anguish cometh upon you, then shall they call upon me, but I will not answer. They shall seek me early, but they shall not find me. You know, people, what's it called, made fun of the names we teach, Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai. People out there have actually profaned that name, right? The scriptures say not to use that name in vain. People do that as a form of mockery. And the thing is, those same individuals have been marked. So when their prayer and desolation come, they're going to try and call upon those names, but the Lord don't give a damn. He will not answer. Also, you have that one precept that reads, "Depart from the Lord, your prayer shall be an abomination." I think that was also Proverbs 28, correct me wrong. But what's it called? Continuing on. Yeah, that's why what's it called? I believe it was Romans 9th chapter made the mention how, what's it called? The Lord only hears the praise of the righteous. People out here, what's it called? Praying to the Lord, not even keeping the ways of righteousness, which is the law. You know, they want to be smoking. They want to be smoking weed, eating pork, right? Getting drunken, right? Various other wicked, activities, quote unquote pastimes. You know, and then they have the audacity to pray unto the Lord, right? Which is wickedness. And the Lord don't listen to you. How are you gonna have the audacity and the confidence to, what's it called, defile your temple and break the law? But then what's it called, pray to the Lord, and you're not even using the right name to do it. So you're going off in various aspects. I digress. Then shall they call upon me, but I will not answer. They shall seek me early, but they shall not find me. For that they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord, they would not have my counsel to despite all my reproof. Therefore shall they eat of the fruit of their own way, and be filled with their own device. For the turning away of the simple shall slay them, and the prosperity of fools shall destroy them. But whoso hearkeneth unto me, and hearkeneth is an archaic term to hear, right? When somebody says hearken, you really mean hearing, right? He that hath to hear, let him hear. Right? Whoso hearkeneth unto me shall dwell safely and shall be quiet from fear of evil. And that also ties in the Job the 5th chapter, how going to how, hey, the people of the Lord, they're going to be calm and collected, right? They shall be in league, right? And it was called the animals won't get down. Hey, because we know time after Sirach, the 39th chapter, around verse 44, it made a mention how the Lord, all this judgment going on right now, the Lord has what's it called, these animals, tearing up people. You have various aspiring models, they get mauled down by a dog, now they look hideous and ugly. That was the Lord that did that, right? The Lord did that. Because what is judgment? So, I'm going to pull out in the book of Job, the 5th chapter. Going into the beasts shall be at peace with the mouth of the Lord. Job, the 5th chapter, In verse 19, he shall deliver thee in 6 troubles. In 7, there shall no evil touch thee. The Lord's going to preserve his people from all these, perilous activities, all this calamity that the wicked will face and experience. And it makes a mention how, in 7, there shall no evil touch you. That's going to the ICBMs, right? Now, that day of the Lord, which be a disastrous day. And famine shall redeem thee from death, and war from the power of the sword. What's it called? And because we're coming through some rough times where, famine will come back again. As you saw in recent years, the squares will be, what's it called? As a thing, what's it called? It came in waves, right? You look at ancient Egypt during the Exodus, the Lord got down on the Egyptians, starting out with Pharaoh, through waves, through plagues. They came in waves, right? Bloody river, frogs, boils, the Lord, what's it called? Killing the firstborn of every family. And same thing in the book of Joshua, right? Same thing with the Canaanites, right? It came in plagues, it came in waves. Same thing with America, right? In 2020, yeah, it's storehouses, right? What's it called? We still have plagues. Now we're talking about kissing bugs with the Chagas disease that probably infected at least 1 million, if I'm mistaken, or 250,000 in California, in the SoCal. So there's still pestilence going on. There's still tensions of war brewing on. As a matter of fact, it's the same thing with what's it called going on in the Middle East. Same beef, same tensions. Different airstrikes, right? If I'm mistaken, around August 25th or so, or 22nd, I believe it was Turkey. They started cutting off military shipment contact with Israel because they're siding with Gaza. So you're seeing war blew up still. That's also a sign that we're at the end of this thing, right? That's in the book of Matthew, 21st chapter. And think the spirit aligned is right where I wanted. Verse 6, Matthew 24 and 6. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, but all these things must come to pass. But the end is not yet. So we're nowhere at the end of the end. We're nowhere at the end of the end. Right? So again, ye shall hear wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled. And we're not troubled. People out here flipping out. They're freaking out. But we're not, because we know that through the establishment of these continuous, prophecies, the kingdom will be established very soon. Because it's about a breaking down. The breaking down of what's been established. Right? I'm going to pull that out. Should be with me. It was Sirach, the 10th chapter, aka Ecclesiastic, the 10th chapter. Verse 13. Verse 13. For pride is the beginning of sin, and he that hath it shall pour out abomination. And what's it called? What's America known for? Is pride, right? It's a prideful place, right? There was a post on I forget what the app is called. It's like an extension, Instagram or whatever, tag I think it's called. And there was a post about Canadians and Americans, compliment each other. And yeah, Canadian made the mention how America is known for its, fervent, fervorous, patriotism, which is a form of pride, right? But we know time after Proverbs 8 and 13, pride leads to destruction, and the haughty spirit before a fall. So again, Sirach 10 and 13, for pride is the beginning of sin. And because no one born of a woman should be prideful. Only the Lord, right? Hey, Esau done created mechanical cells that multiply and that eat off other cells, right? Sure, Esau's created, but he didn't create robots. that don't mean you should be prideful. You know, because even then, those are extremely flawed, right? Those things are extremely flawed. You know, you have a growing hatred against robots, known as you got robotic slurs. You got the term clanker. That word clanker, there's already growing hatred against these robots, and you see these various videos, and they're all, what's it called, slipping, tripping, bugging out from like a bug. So even then, the man-made creations, artificial creations, are thence, what's it called, flawed. Only the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Hashem Shai, should be prideful, right? Right? Hey, because though the Lord had Yahweh Shai had the help from the angels to create everything, and it's proven in the scriptures, Yahweh Shai created, right, what's it called, the contents of the universe. It was all brought to pass by the Heavenly Father. He conceptualized it, meaning he thought about it before time, gave the blueprints, and created through those men, through those spirits. So everything, it's really ultimately of the Lord. So, and therefore the Lord brought up upon them strange calamities and overthrew them utterly. The Lord had cast down the thrones of proud princes. And you can liken your prince, which that word prince in the Hebrew is shar, meaning leader, a chieftain. So you can liken your modern day princes to your modern day leaders with whatever title that is, chairman, prime minister, president, whatever. Right? Those are proud princes. Dukes. Yeah, dukes. Things of that sort. What's it called? The Lord had cast down, and this is future prophecy, meaning it hasn't happened yet. Right now, obviously, in certain circumstances back in the ancient world, yes, like what's it called? The Lord did cast down Nebuchadnezzar, and he was in a beastly state. But really, this is what's it called, manifold. You could also liken it as future prophecy for with concurrent what's it called leads right now. So, the Lord had plucked up socket and stuff the Mika nurse said, and that ties back to, I believe, Psalms 24 or so. It made the mention how we shall be in the stead of the wicked, So a role reversal, the tables will turn essentially, right? Because right now we're at the lowest point. We're the meek, you know. Whereas Esau being prideful and whatnot, he's up there all high and mighty, living deliciously, and it's going to continue that way until that day of the Lord. And then that day of the Lord is going to be a role reversal, where the nation of Israel, who are the sons of God, will be up in position of power. Whereas Esau, the basis of the man, shall actually base for once and for all. And once and for all, because even in the ancient world, Esau had a part to play with heathen kingdoms, right? You had I believe it's Aram or so, or I forget his name, the Amalekite in the book of Esther, right? That was an Amalekite that head tribe of Esau Edom, right? He was an Edomite, right? And he had a position of power. So you always had that happen throughout various kingdoms. It was called Antipater the Idumean. He was I believe it was Antipater's name. He was a forefather, or not the father, the father to, biological father to Herod, right? Right, Herod the Great. So he was also in position of power under the Hasmonean dynasty. And so to make it their stead, who have plucked up the roots of the proud nations. Now, obviously, we know what's it called, be plucked up, is twofold, because, or not in this case, no, but in Ecclesiastes 3, it is twofold, because it goes into the planting and plucking up of that which is planted. But I could refer to gardening, but you could also refer to it as the establishment and then the destruction of various kingdoms, right? In this case, talking about kingdoms. The Lord had plucked up the roots of the proud nations and planted the lowly in their stead. Now, what's it called? It is future prophecy because it still ain't happened yet. We're still in captivity, but it's gonna come to pass very soon, right? What's it called? Now I want to pull out something from this textbook. It's California Prentice Hall Medieval and Early Modern Times. Now I have critiques of this book itself because I've noticed some errors in this book. All right, there are errors in this book, as in many other academic, given books. Right, they may make mistakes. In this case, a mistake was about, I believe it was it's page 19. It made them mention how in 476 the Visigoths forced the last emperor of the Western Empire, right, to leave office. That's not true. All right, it wasn't the Visigoths. The Visigoths were in northwest Italy and more so to Spain. So the truth about this, in 476 AD, it was actually Odo Oster. Odo Oster was, I believe he was, I forget, I think he was a Hun. If I'm not mistaken, Odo Oster was a Hun, and his father served under Attila. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong on that history. But Odo Oster in 476 AD was the one who dethroned the last emperor of the Western Roman Empire, right? But it wasn't like a what's it called, a ruthless one. He basically made a deal with them. Hey, you get exiled, and you'll be good, and that's what happened. So hey, a meme caption could be, Rome wasn't built in a day, but I sure destroyed it in one. Odo Oster, 476 AD. Right? You could look at it that way. But tying back, the West, section 3 from pages 16 to 17, the Western Empire collapses. Uh, it reads background knowledge. At its height, the Roman Empire was the largest empire the world has ever seen. Right? It was an empire weighed down with problems. So Roman internal weaknesses, even during the Pax Romana, which Pax Romana was a time of peace, Roman peace. There were signs of weakness in the empire. The empire was made up of diverse peoples, each with, and that supports the statement that the other apostles taught me to mention. How even ancient Rome had the heathen nations. It was a melting pot on its own. It wasn't just pure Romans. You had people from all parts of the world, in that area. Else, what's it called? What do you call it? The Silk Road, I believe it was. Oh, what is that? Well, the what's it called? Trading between civilizations. So there's always been melting pots throughout the world. Many of these peoples felt little loyalty to Rome. Many of these peoples felt little loyalty to Rome or to its rulers. So what were examples that contributed to the collapse of the Western Roman Empire, which was, ruled by Esau Edom, whereas the Eastern, now known as the Byzantine Empire. So the modern scholars named it the Byzantine Empire to not confuse it with the Western Roman Empire. You know, and the Eastern Roman Empire was ruled by Jake for a period of a little over 1,000 years, or just estimate-wise 1,000 years, the scriptures say. But you have right here, it makes the mention expanding citizenship, right? Economic problems, social problems, and a weaker army, and threats from outside the empire, barbarian invasions, right? And you see examples of that even in this modern world, right? A weaker army because it's made up of many nations, right? Not just Esau, not just diehard Esau, but yeah, Jake in it, right? All nations are in the American military, man. Person. So, and even that's an example. The things that were written the fourth time were written, or Slaki, no, Slaki, that's Slaki. The thing, the thing that's been is that what shall be done. That's what I'm gonna say, Slaki. But, and you have to digress back um, to Matthew the 24th chapter. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines. And you saw a famine in 2020. Well, guess what? It's going to come back again, right? And we're probably talking about cannibalism coming back. Cannibalism was in the Bible, right? I'm going to pull that out. I forget the precept. I know it's like around the second Kings or so. Shepherd with me. Uncle Shepherd with me. It was Second Kings, the 6th chapter, verse 29. Hey, because cannibalism was a thing in the Bible. People don't like to make that mention. They don't even know about it. But hey, we're talking about that's gonna come back. That's gonna come back, all right. So Second Kings, the 6th chapter, verse verse 25. And there was a great famine in Samaria, and behold, they besieged it until an ass's head was sold for 80 pieces of silver, and the fourth part of a calf done for 5 pieces of silver. Hey, so you had Jake eating abominable foods. They were eating donkey and they were eating dove food, bird food, right? How about that? And as the king of Israel was passing by upon the wall, there cried a woman unto him, saying, Help me, my lord, O king. And he said, If the Lord do not help you, when shall I help you? Right? Because everybody was, in trouble. And that's the terrible thing about sieges. If you're being besieged and you're in that city, there's no way outside unless they surrender or you get killed off. And what's it called with the siege is that it's like a blockade. They block all imports and exports and coming. That means no more food. If you eat up all your stores, and then eventually you get weakened and you surrender or you get killed off. In this case, they were still besieged. And he said, If the Lord do not help thee, when shall I help thee out of the barn flour or out of the winepress? And the king said unto her, What aileth thee? And she answered, This woman said unto me, Give thy son that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow. So we boiled my. How about that's talking about cannibalism in the Bible. 2 Kings 6:27, right? We're on verse 29 right now. So we boiled my son and did eat him, and I said unto her on the next day, Give thy son that we may eat him, and she hath hid her son. When it came to pass, when the king heard the words of the woman, that he rent his clothes, and he passed by upon the wall, and the people looked, and behold, he had sackcloth open upon his flesh. Right? So that's an example of what's it called cannibalism and a famine in general. And after the 24th chapter, verse 7 again, the nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines. And this is why we emphasize turning back to the Lord. Starting off with ourselves first and foremost, right? We speak to ourselves first and foremost. And pestilences, meaning sicknesses, diseases. Again, with that Chaga disease, running rampant across the state right now. And you may see a kissing bug, that could have Chagas disease, man. All right, so and earthquakes in diverse places. Now, Esau's done talking about there's always been earthquakes, but there's never been so greatly exaggerated as of now. All right, rumblings, and you could liken it to as an example could be, it is an analogy, right? An analogy could be like a ceremony, and then it's like the coming of somebody, great. And so you got the drums playing the dun 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 until that certain individual arrives. You could liken it to as such. The earthquakes as rumblings, as the drums playing for the day of the Lord and the establishment of the kingdom. All right, so there's an analogy to everything, and that's the thing about it. We being a spiritual people, we're gonna use allegories, right? We look at certain things a spiritual way. All these are the beginning of sorrows, but we've been in the beginning of sorrows, man. We've been at the beginning of sorrows. We're at the end of the sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name. So that's talking about persecution against the prophets of the Lord, right? Which a persecution isn't Hollywood style. Hollywood style isn't one day. No, a persecution is a long period of time, right? just like how it was back in Western Roman Empire, right? And that's where you had various kings. They got down on so-called Christians, right? Or really the true Christians, which would be the elect, right? Not this modern idea of what it is, because we know what's it called since the Byzantine Empire and the Constantine, and with the Council of Nicaea, we had various denominations, various doctrines, and now it ain't Christianity anymore, man. The point being, right? Yeah, various denominations with bugged out doctrines. Some want to talk about same sex marriage and whatnot when the scriptures don't support it. You know, they, persecution will come back basically, and then shall many be offended and shall betray one another and shall hate one another. Right? Many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many, and because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. Right? What's one thing about waxing? When you wax first, you're increasing. You're increasing. So that's why it's not there's not a strong sense of love anymore, right? You got families killing each other, man. You got wicked individuals killing their parents. That's wicked, right? That is fucked. Believe that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And you're gonna have individuals that even offer themselves with the coming troubles, right? Hey, because these are perilous times on its own. Hey, back when the pandemic first came about, we had people, give up the ghost out of fear. Well, that was nothing compared to what's coming, right? Much, much more worse. Much more, trouble. Whoa, alas, right? Whoa, both phrases you use in disturbance and distress, right? So, I'm gonna tie back to priest that was on. So again, I make peace and create evil. So these properties have to come to pass because they've been established by the Lord, right? Isaiah the 46th chapter, verse 10. So, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times, the things are not yet done. Saying, my kingdom shall stand, I will do my pleasure. Right? You think that the prophecies written aforetime by the prophets of old, right, came about as of right now? Oh no, they came about before. No, they're coming about as of right now. Slack it. Correct. Slack it for my slip up. I was slip of the tongue right there. Uh, Many of them didn't come to pass yet. All right. You had on Quora, some buffoon said that Isaiah 4:1 was a failed prophecy, but the scriptures say if someone fails a prophecy, they're not a real prophet. But Isaiah was a prophet of the Lord. So are you saying that Isaiah is a false prophet? No. And really, the person on Quora is a freaking idiot because they're lying. So Isaiah 4:1 hasn't happened yet. It will come to pass very soon. Right? That's a bucket. Second chapter, I'm gonna start with verse 1. I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower and will watch to see what you will say unto me and which I shall answer when I am reproved. And the Lord Yahweh answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables that I may run that readeth it. And it has been written. Originally on tables, then on paper, and now we have it digital. Right? This is an example of it written plain. Also the internet, or what's it called, applications in the app store. They may run that readeth it. And what are we ready to? We're ready to sound the alarm. Sound the alarm. Joel the second chapter says, hey, they shall sound the alarm. Right? How are we sounding the alarm? Hey, we're not physically going to no goddamn watchtower to, ring a bell talking about, hey, certain stuff. No, we're doing this on the highway of Nedges. Before it happens, it's called the forewarning. So, for the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, and tarry means to wait. Though it tarry, wait for it yourself. Because it was surely coming, will not tarry. Henceforth, we have to wait on prophecy, basically. So that moron that said, what's it called? That was a false prophecy. That person's an idiot because prophecies are not supposed to be felt. Isaiah 55:11, the thing that I'm gonna pull that out. I'm gonna pull that out. So whatever was spoken of through the man of the Lord will come to pass. So Isaiah 55:11. So shall my word that goes forth out of my mouth. They shall not return to me void, which shall accomplish that which I please in the thing. They shall prosper in the thing which I sent it. So henceforth, if Isaiah spoke about, what's it called, 7 women came even unto one man, it will come to pass. It could be like 1,000 years from now. Well, we're at this point where it's going to come to pass very soon. The other part broke that down, making the mention probably could take a day, a week, 1,000 years from now. There's like how no man knows the time or the hour, the day of the Lord. No one can tell when prophecy is going to happen. We have an estimate though, but at the end, we know it will come to pass soon. We don't know what date though. And you got mofos on TikTok talking about on September 27th, 2025. October 18th. No one knows a date. It's a thing of faith. We have hope, and we know it's soon, right? It's like the Jedi. We're sensitive beings. They're claircognizant. That means they can sense when things are about to go down. Same thing with us with the spirit, right? I digress back. So I'll put out another. So all right, I'm gonna go back to Psalm 57, and we really digress. I was supposed to pull out. I think it was. I was supposed to pull out Wisdom of Psalm. I mean, forgetting it right now. What's it called? But first, going out to Psalm 37, verse 4. Light thy, or verse 3. Trust in the Lord and do good, so shalt thou dwell in the land, and verily thou shalt be fed. And what did the scripture say? My servant shall eat. When that famine hits hard, right? It could be like a can of beans rolled down the corner, right to you, or something like that. And you got certain individuals when the Lord establishes, to give snacks or like waters or whatever, right? Now that's y'all pop. Call halalim la Yahweh Hashem Shai. That right, the water, right? So delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thine heart. Commit thy ways unto the Lord. Trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. And he shall bring forth thy righteousness and lies of judgment as a noonday. Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Right? Fret not thyself because of him to prosper in his way, because of the man who bringeth the wicked devices to pass. Cease from anger and forsake wrath. Fret not thyself in any way to do evil. The evildoers shall be cut off, but those that wait in the Lord, they shall inherit the earth. Right? So thing of patience. Prophecy does take time on its own. Probably takes time. Right? We gotta wait on the Lord and cleave unto him. And what's it called? This also goes into no revolutions. We're not here to revolt against the. Hey, the scriptures go into how I'm gonna put. I think it was Proverbs 28th chapter makes mention how he that revolteth shall be ashamed to his father. If I'm not mistaken. We're not here to revolt. I thought Yahweh Shai said, be what's it called? Wait, was it Yahweh Shai that made the mention? Why are certain things harmless stuff? And we're to be blameless, man. Yahweh Shai didn't revolt. You have some locals talking about Yahweh Shai was a radical. He was not a radical. You know? The only thing radical about him was that he taught the truth. We're not like Sakari, you know, we don't physically get down. That's unless the power comes into play, right? Spiritual power. You know, all we're to do is just read a book though. You know, read a book out loud. But everybody can hear it. You know, this ain't a revolution. This is just me. This is just us reading. You know, we're not here. We're not about revolts. Uh, so, shepherd with me. What is this verse or chapter? I meant to say. I'll switch it up. I'll look chapter with me. Chapter with me. I'm on the browser right now. It is a shame. What precept was it? No, I could have sworn there was a precept right there, bro. Shepherd with me. I forget the precept. I just passed by it. I don't remember. What was it called? We know what's it called. Rebellion is a sin of rebelliousness. If I'm mistaken, is that a sin of witchcraft? Right. That's also in First Samuel. That's another precept, right? And go against what the word of the Lord. Hey, so dying back, if you was it called forsake the law, which is essentially to rebel against the Lord, then you'll be cut off, man. But shepherd with me. Yeah. Good precept. Proverbs 10:27, the fear of the Lord prolongeth days, and that word for the Lord, you could also liken it to as in servitude. If you was to call if you fear in the Lord, you believe in him, and if you believe in him, you're gonna do the things that are commanded. People claim that they're the Lord, but what have they done? You know, what have they done? Therefore, they honor the Lord with their lips, but their heart is far from them, as the scripture says. You know, they're all talk essentially. They're all talk, right? We move weight as they move their mouth, basically. They cannot walk the way they talk, right? You know, they're being religious. You know, they don't borrow their tongue and do as commanded. So the fear of the Lord is in to serve him prolonged days. Yeah, because the wages of sin leads unto death. The opposite of it leads unto virtue and life, right? And what's the end all be all? The crown of life, the immortality, right? That's what we're hoping upon. Right, so but the years of the wicked shall be short, and that starts with Esau Edom, but you could also pertain that to the heathen and the 2/3 of the nation of Israel. They're wicked. Hey, did not the scripture think to mention out you could account them for the heathen? You know? Hey, they're spiritual Israel. Well, they're damn near the spiritual heathens because Jake loves to be like the heathen. Right? Jake loves to be like the heathen. So the hope of the righteous shall be glad, but the expectation of the wicked shall perish. Right? The way of the Lord is strange to the upright, but destruction shall be to the workers of iniquity. People love to, forget about that. You know, they love to forget about what's it called. You know, not taking heed to the scriptures leads unto destruction upon them, right? As a matter of fact, you're not cleaving to the ways of the Lord, but having confidence and claiming that the Lord is with you is a form of pride, right? You have no shame. The opposite of pride is shame, humility, right? That having no shame is a form of pride. Therefore, again, the way of the Lord is trying to the upright, but destruction shall be to the workers of iniquity. The light shall never be removed, but the wicked shall not inhabit the earth. And they're inhabiting it right now, but they will not later. Right? So, what that just happened? Right? Hey, this is a spirit right here. I just landed on Job 9:24. The earth is given to the hand of the wicked. He covers the faces of the judges thereof, but not wearing who is he, right? And he covers the face of the judges. He likes to be like he likes to claim to be the Israelites. And they're also in position of power. They're the ones judging all these matters, right? They have the earth in their hands. You know? Hey, the shadow pyramid, right? These top banking families controlling everything, manipulating everything. Example could be the Fed. Privately owned, what's it called? Construct, which financed the war on both sides. The First World War. Though, historically speaking, that would be the First World War. Yet the first actual World War could have been, I believe, it was a 30 Years' War or something like that. It happened like 200 years prior to that, or 100 years prior to that, because it was fought on different fronts. If the World War One, the Great War, that was an actual devastating blow. If you could base a war before that, it would be, I think it was 30 Years' War or something like that. I forget. 100 Years' War, I forget. I gotta review my what's it called, history on that. So it was not the official, or it's an official World War, but it was not the technical First World War, because a World War would be fought on different fronts with different peoples, and that happened before the Great War. I just want to clarify that. So I can for my stuttering. All right, so time back to Psalm 27. What is that? At the spirit on the page. All right. What was that? What was that? Oh yeah, verse 10. For yet a little while, and the wicked shall not be. Yea, thou shalt diligently consider his place, and that shall not be. Right? No more power. And with Esau Edom, hey, he'll be blotted out from remembrance. Put up as a people. As Obadiah. Hold up, what? I'm confused. All right, there. Obadiah, verse verse 18. And the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble. Right? When you look at stubble, it's all burned. Nothing left. It's just burned. And you got some little embers flying around. Right? So that's how Esau's been likened to. And they shall kindle in so as nothing basically. And they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for the Lord has spoken to. And as the elders broke it down, it's going to Esau being burned up in a big old, like bonfire after 1,000 years of hardcore bondage in the Canaan. Hey, because Revelation, I believe it's 20, it touches on 1,000 years. The first one being the Byzantine Empire, right? What's it called? And the second one being in the kingdom, right? And they of the south shall possess, okay, and they of the south shall possess the kind of Esau, and they are the plain of the Philistines, and they shall possess the fields of Ephraim, and the fields of Samaria, and the Benjamin shall possess Gilead. And therefore, we're gonna possess the those lands. We're gonna possess the whole earth, man. And our primary hub, our primary, capital, if you will, our chief place would be in the Middle East. That fertile region comprised within the Fertile Crescent. Arabia is always the best of the best land, which the Lord had promised unto us, His chosen people, right? In the captivity of this host, the children of Israel shall possess out the Canaanites, even unto. How about that? In the captivity of this host, the children of Israel shall possess out the Canaanites, even unto Zarephath, the captivity of Jerusalem, which is in Cyprus, shall possess the sea of the south. And Savior shall come up on Mount Zion, the judge the Mount east, and the kingdom shall be the Lord's. And I feel like that's a great way to end the lesson, right? So we're coming back into power, baby, right? And we're gonna come back into power, baby, right? Uh, yeah, it's gonna be great, huh? I'm gonna pull out one more precept actually. Yeah, why not? He was Isaiah 14th chapter. How about that? Hey, for the Lord, Isaiah chapter 14, verse 1. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land, and the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall flee to the house of Jacob. And those strangers ain't talking about the heathen. Hey, those strangers are talking about the nation of Israel, right? A scattered abroad coming back. Oh, we're strangers, right? We were living under the modern guises of the world, so-called Mexicans, in which I believe through faith I'm actually a Gadite, but obviously that would be cleared up officially in the kingdom. But I used to believe I Issachar, and now I believe in Gad, though I'm so-called Mexican, right? So that's what the string is talking about. And the people shall take them, and now those people are actually talking about the heathen right there. And people shall take them and bring them to their place in the house of Israel to possess them in the land of the Lord of his servants and handmaids. They shall take them captive, they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. Meaning slavery will come back. Slavery is not a wicked thing. In modern academia, in the professional world, is attributed to something corrupt and vile. No, Esau only says that so he doesn't have to think about the fact that he's not going to captivity. Notice how what's it called? There's many. He begins to cancel people for doing the things he did. Meaning he was a hypocrite. Esau used to portray himself as the Egyptian, but then when Beyonce played the role of Cleopatra, all of a sudden she was white. She was so called white, not black. Yeah, well then she did the same thing but reverse. So they try and use these what they call excuses to justify themselves, and not have anybody do what they did. Meaning they're hypocrites, right? Yeah, Esau put us into slavery. We're still in slavery under him. Yeah, but then he's talking about it's wicked. No, bro, you're still in slavery. Ain't talking about what's it called? It's wrong. You're doing it. You know. And going to show you how he is the wicked, right? And he trips up on his own tongue too. You've seen examples of various Edomites that trip up on their own tongue. You know, they may lie about one thing. A month from now, they say a different thing. And it is not unless you have, saved or recorded the video of what he said that you're able to make the example known that he tripped up on his own tongue. And the example would be that damn devil, Fauci, right? Uh, so we shall rule over our present. It's going to be righteous. And it shall come to pass in the day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow and from the fear and from thy fear and from the hard bondage for 1,000 days to serve. Hey, we're Israelites. We're supposed to be gods, not freaking no servant. So it's a terrible thing to see princes walk upon the earth and servants upon horses. No, it's supposed to be a prince upon the horse and servants walking upon the earth. Bro. not the other way around. Jeez. It shall come to pass in the day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow and from thy fear and from the hard bondage when thou hast made to serve. That thou shalt take up this proverb, and because we're a people of proverbs, we're a people of saying, right? The sour grapes, right? Proverbs, right? The wicked, how the wicked see of wickedness, proverb, right? So many other sayings we have, man, right? Then it's like that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, and say, how hath the oppressor ceased, the golden city ceased? For I have broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers. Right? He who smote the people and rout with a continuous stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted and unhindered. A meaning the Lord is breaking his power down little by little, right? And soon will come back in the power. With that being said, I'm edifying, right? I want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto the Heavenly Father and His only begotten Son, who this world so eminently calls God, and Jesus Christ, whose true name is on the Paleo Hebrew script. Yahweh, Ba'asham, Yahweh Shai, Ba'asham, Ha, Rachak, Wadash. All right, the honor speak to the apostles and those that great millstone who about and taught us the 100% truth. Much peace and blessings be unto the hopeful, elect, men of the Lord, pushing out this word, cause with sincerity to all you walk from my new sexual along, right? Blah, blah, blah. ETA soon, a little out.